Hi, welcome to Cook with Passion with me, Izyan. Today I'll be sharing with you 3 different recipes which are all-time Malaysian favorites. And what makes it more special today is we're going to be using Malaysian palm oil in our cooking. So first we're going to start with roti jala, which is also known as the Malaysian lace pancake. It has like a lace net-like shape or pattern that I'll show with you later. And we're gonna eat it with mutton curry. So traditionally we'll eat it with chicken curry, but today I'm gonna amp it up a bit because we're in the presence of Malaysian palm oil, which is special. So I'm gonna make it more special by using mutton curry. So first, let's start with the curry first because that takes the longest. And while you cook the curry, you can make the lace pancake or the roti jala, and you'll eat it together and it will be so good for breakfast. Okay, so let's start. So I'm going to use this blender here to blend our ingredients. You can also use a food processor if you have them, but I'll be using this blender where I'm going to be putting half of an onion, 1 red chili. If you don't want it spicy, just leave it out. I'm using 2 bird's eye chilies as well because I like it spicy. I'm using 1 whole tomato, 6 cloves of garlic, and around 3 inches of ginger that I've quartered. So put those all in there. Now what we're going to do is going to add some water to it. Okay. So if you're using a food processor, you may not need water, but since this is a blender, it won't really turn if you don't have water in it. But don't put too much because you want it to be like a paste-like consistency. So what you want to do is just put a bit of water just to get it turning. So I'm going to turn this on. There we go. You can have it as fine as you want, but I prefer it to be not too fine. So once you have that, turn off your blender, safety, take that out. Now we're going to use this as our base, and what I have here is also a mix of spices. So I have 3 tablespoons of curry powder, half a tablespoon of coriander powder, half a tablespoon of turmeric powder, and 1 tablespoon of chili powder. So if you don't like it hot, you can leave out the chili powder, but I think all of us know that Malaysians like it hot when it comes to our food. So I'm going to put a bit of chili powder there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it up with a bit of water to form a paste. So what we're going to do first is we're going to fry our aromatics with Malaysian palm oil. So I'm going to turn this on to a medium heat. You don't want to be too high. You don't want it to be too high because your spices could burn. So I'm just going to, yeah. Okay, that's good. So now we're going to use our main ingredient, the Malaysian palm oil, and put quite a generous amount. So essentially what we want to do is we want to make sure that all of our raw ingredients here, the base of the paste or the base of the rempah as we call it, would be cooked through. But first of all, you want to stir fry these aromatics so that they are nice and fragrant. So here I have some star anise. I've tipped in 1 stick of cinnamon stick, and then I also have a couple of cardamoms. So if you like it fragrant, you can put more. I'm just going to turn the heat up a bit here. So basically I'm putting almost equal amounts of each. Okay. Okay. So we're just gonna let that fry until it's fragrant. And in the meantime, I'm gonna mix this into a paste. So what I also have here is 3 stems of curry leaves. These are fresh. If you have this, use this because it makes a ton of difference. So we're gonna put this once the aromatics are fragrant. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn this into a paste. I'm going to take a spoon put all of your spices into a bowl. You could fry it dry into the oil as well, but it could burn. So if you mix it with water, it makes it easier for it to cook and not burn that easily. So what I have here is a meat curry powder because I'm using mutton today. So if you're using fish, which is not a typical choice for roti jala, but it's curry, you can use a fish curry paste. But what I'm using today is meat curry paste. So you want to take just a bit of water here. Just put a bit at a time so that it's not too runny. So if you can see here, I'm trying to form a paste and not enough water. So I'm just going to put a bit more. Okay. Now curry typically takes quite long to cook in the beginning of the process because you want to make sure that all of these ingredients are cooked through. They are what we always like to call pecah minyak. So it's basically when you start to see the oil start to surface, the natural oil of the ingredients starts to come to surface. And what makes it much better for us to use Malaysian palm oil is that it has a high smoking point. So it takes a lot longer for it to burn as opposed to some liquid fats where if you put it for 5 minutes and forget about it, it's gonna turn upside down. So you wanna make sure you use Malaysian palm oil when you make your curry because it's gonna last a long time on the heat and not turning its back on you. So I'm just gonna put a bit more water just to make it a bit more runny. Yeah, I think we have it. All right, okay. So now my aromatics is quite fragrant. Now at this point, you want to stir in your blended ingredients, which I'm going to pour in here. The sweet sound of sizzle of ingredients in oil, I just love it. I think that's like the epitome of Malaysian cooking. When you hear, you knew something good is going in the kitchen. And what makes it better? Malaysian palm oil. So I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit just because this paste has some water in it. I want to cook the water out and I want to make sure that the paste is cooked as well, all the wet ingredients. So now what I'm going to add into that is my sliced onions. So the reasons why I have some sliced and some blended is because I want some textures in my curry. So I make sure to put that in as well. Now at this point, you put in your curry leaves. Okay, careful there. I'm just gonna put this aside. All right. So now what you wanna do is go from the end to the top, just one smooth push. You're gonna get all of this in there. So some people like to fry it and put it in the end so that it remains crispy, but I like to put it in the curry so that I can get all of the fragrance and all the nice smell of the curry leaves. So now it's looking good. I'm gonna put in the curry paste into the pot. Now the best thing also about curry is that it tastes better as it sits longer in the fridge. So if you make it ahead and you want to serve it the day after or later in the day, it's going to taste so much better because all of the flavors have developed and you're getting more of a mature curry. Yeah, but it tastes as good if you make it fresh too. So now I have everything here. I'm just gonna fry it. So this is the stage where it takes the longest because you wanna make sure that all of the pastes are cooked through. Okay, so what I have here for the curry is some mutton, some potatoes, Malaysian palm milk, and some tamarind juice for sourness. So as you can see here, the oil has started to come to surface at the ring of the pot. So this is when we know that our paste is starting to cook, and if you can smell it, it smells so good. Like nothing wakes you up in the morning like a good curry. Because you know, you can eat it with almost anything actually, rice, bread, or roti jala, which we'll be making today. So you want to keep stirring to make sure that every bit of it gets cooked through. So as that's cooking, I'm going to put in my potatoes just because they take a while to cook. You can put some other vegetables as well, like carrots if you like, but we're just going to stick with potatoes for today. So we can see how deep brown that has turned, and we can start to see the oil that comes to the surface, the pecah minyak. So that's basically, we know that our paste is almost cooked through. Now what I like to do is also season as I cook. Some people season at the end. You can do that as well. Now I can see all of the oil has almost come to surface, and I can see that it has turned into a very rich brown color. At this stage, I'm going to add in my mutton inside. Okay. So we're going to add our mutton inside. So you can use lamb if you want to as well, but typically here we would use mutton. So if you use gamier meat like beef or mutton or maybe venison, then it would take a while to cook as opposed to chicken, which takes quite a short amount of time. If you want to cut the time, you could cook the lamb first or the mutton first in a pressure cooker. Then you could cut down your cooking time by half. And once the paste is cooked through, then you can add in your cooked mutton. But if you don't have a pressure cooker, it's okay. You can cook it with the curry. You just need to give it more time. So either way. So now that our paste has cooked through, I'm going to add a very special ingredient I'm going to introduce to you guys, which is Malaysian santan sawit. So this is also known as palm milk. You can see the texture is not as thick as coconut milk. So this is actually a much healthier substitute to coconut milk that we've always used when we make curries or things like masak lemak. So this is something that you can use to substitute. It's much better, it's much healthier, and it's much cheaper too. So I'm gonna add a little bit of the santan sawit into the curry. So you can just eyeball it. This is around half a cup. So I like to put in a little first because I want my curry to be quite thick. I like them thick so that I can also dip them with deep bread in them. But if you want it to be runny or loose, you can add more santan sawit or more water. So now we can see that from that rich brown, it has turned into a lighter brown. So now you're just going to stir that around and make sure that everything is well cooked through. All right. So for a bit of a sour note, I like to use tamarind juice. Some people use lime juice, some people use lemon juice. You can use any kind of acidic notes that you like. But I'm going to use just a little bit of the tamarind juice. So I'm just going to pour this in a little, not too much. So yeah, that's around 3 tablespoons. All right, okay. So now just stir that around. So like I've said earlier, if you have a pressure cooker, it would be much faster. But since we don't have one, we're going to create one. So it's a very simple technique that I use. I just use a lid essentially to create like a mini pressure cooker environment in there. It's not the same, I know, but it does the job. So put the lid on and turn the heat to low and just let it cook. So now we're going to make our roti jala, which is also known as a lace pancake. What I have here is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. So you're going to put this in a bowl. So the reason why I'm using a bigger bowl is because I'm going to shortcut it and use a mixer. You can use good elbow grease if you want to with a whisk, but we're going to skip and use this today. So I will add 1 egg into the mix. And I have here 1.5 cup of water. So this recipe is actually quite dynamic. You want it to be like a crepe-like consistency, which is quite loose. So we'll turn it on the pan first. If it turns out to be too thick or too loose, you can always add more flour or add more water. It's perfectly fine. So we're going to put a bit of turmeric to make it turn into this golden yellow color. I know some people who used beetroot juice and turn it red, so you can do that as well. It's basically pretty easy and flexible for you to work around. So I'm going to use this mixer and mix this. Alright, so that looks quite about right. If you have a really high-powered blender, you can use that as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to strain the batter because we want to remove all of the lumps that could be still floating around in the mix. So what I'm going to do here is just put this in a cup because I'm going to pour it in my special utensil, which I'll share with you later. So now you want to sieve this through so that it would be lump-free and very smooth. And this is a great make-ahead dish because you can always make it a day earlier or earlier in the day if you want to serve it in the evening or at night, because it doesn't really go bad for a couple of days. So now that you have this smooth and lump-free batter, you want to transfer this into this roti jala cup. So this is quite unique because I think you can only buy this in, if not Malaysia, maybe just Southeast Asia. But you can always make shift by poking a hole onto the cap of your water bottle. Just poke 1 or 2 holes, a really small one, and then put it in, and you can just invert it and make your roti jala. So I'm gonna put this in my cup since I have it. I'm just gonna put that in. Alright. So this batter can actually last for a couple of days. So you can always make it ahead. So once that's hot, you want to add a little bit of the Malaysian palm oil here. So just put in a bit of oil, half a teaspoon maybe, and take a brush and just wipe it so that it's all spread throughout the pan nicely. So the Malaysian palm oil here that I use is actually coming from the oil palm fruit, and it's free from trans fat and it's free from cholesterol, which is actually really, really good for you because everyone wants to eat healthy now, right? So this is actually very, very good for you. So now that I have this batter in the cup, or rather in this special roti jala cup, I'm just going to invert it and make a lace pattern by turning this into a circular motion. That's good. So this would actually cook quite quickly. You don't want to turn your back on it because it could burn. So if you can see, the moment it turns opaque and you can see that there is no wet batter, you can actually take it out and fold it. So there are many ways as how you can fold it. Somebody like to roll it, somebody like to flip it in 4. So I'm going to show you how I do it. So now that is done. Oops. What you want to do is flip it this way and then flip it the other way. And you're done. So it looks like a bit of a pizza slice, but that's how I fold them. So you can make so many from just one batter. So let's check how our curry looks like. It smells so good in here, guys. So I'm just gonna give it a quick stir. You can see everything has come together now. The mutton is already tender. So like I said, start with your curry and make your roti jala as you cook this so that when your roti jala is done, your curry is done as well. So now I'm just gonna take some of my curry into the bowl. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chop off some cilantro leaves and stems just to give it a bit more fresh notes. So just gonna take that, put that in, give it a quick stir, and you can scoop out your curry. So I'm just gonna put a bit of more lamb here and pile them high. Everybody loves some mutton, right? All right. There we go. So now I'm gonna put that here and I'm gonna garnish it with a bit of red chili and some spring onions. So I have here some cilantro. You can use this as well if you want to, but I'm just gonna use some spring onion just to give it a bit of color. And you're done. So here you have it. Roti jala and mutton curry with Malaysian palm oil for your pleasure. Welcome to Cook with Passion. I'm Izyan and I'll be sharing with you how to make Malaysian all-time favorite chili crab with fried montou using Malaysian palm oil. So let's start. So first of all, take a blender or a food processor if you have one. I'm going to put in 1 medium onion and 4 cloves of garlic, and I have around 2 inches of ginger that I've quartered. I have belacan or shrimp paste. I have 2 bird's eye chilies because I like it hot, and I have 10 red chilies. So this might look like a lot, but these are not that hot because these are actually quite fruity in a sense. So you can put less, but this is chili crab, so you need a bit of it to have that red color that we're looking for. So in the blender, I'm going to put in a little bit of water just to get it going. So you want just a bit, not too much. And you'll whisk it up. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a bit of oil, our Malaysian palm oil, in this pan over medium heat. So I already have it running just now, just to get it going. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix the yellow Malaysian palm oil that is rich in vitamin E tocotrienol. So you can put quite a bit because you wanna make sure that all these pastes and all these ingredients are cooked out. And to get my pro vitamin A carotenoid, I'm gonna use this red Malaysian palm oil. So this is actually quite good for frying, so the red palm oil is suitable for sauteing and for you to make dressings. So because I want my carotenoid, I'm going to put some of that in there. So what I have here also is a bit of ketchup and sweet chili sauce. I have here tauchu, and I have here my crabs. So we're going to saute this into the oil. It's gonna look like a lot at first, but once it's cooked down, it's gonna be concentrated and you're gonna have a thick sauce. All right. So if you have too much water in your paste as you blend it, you'll need longer time to cook the water out. So you want to make sure that you don't have too much water in your paste. And you just want to cook it through. Now for the crabs, what I have here today are red crabs. You can use any kind of crabs that you like, flower crab or mud crab, but this is the one that is fresh off the boat. So I'm going to use this today. So Malaysian cuisine is actually quite dynamic in a sense that if you go to households and you ask your aunties or your mom, like, what is the measurement of this? I want to make it at home. And they'll be like, approximately this or that. It's always like, you don't really have an exact measurement of things because typically these things, the way it tastes changes too. Like sometimes your chili might not be as hot, or sometimes you just may not have bird's eye chilies, for example. Then you may need to tweak it around to make it work. But typically you would have a rough idea of how much each thing is. But you are more than free to change it according to how you want it to be. So it's almost ready for the other ingredients. So chili crab, although it's chili, one might think that it's hot, but it's actually a mix of spicy, sweet, sour, and a little bit of salty taste. So for that, I'm going to use tauchu or salted fermented beans. So this is the ingredient for me that I think makes it a little different. When you taste something, you're like, what is that? I think that is what tauchu lends to this dish. So I'll add a little bit of tauchu for that salty note. And I will also add a little bit of sweet chili sauce and ketchup for some sweetness and some sourness. And you just want to mix it around. And again, I like to season as I go, so I'm going to add my salt. Not too much because your tauchu or your fermented beans is already salty. You want to give it a quick stir. Make sure it doesn't burn. All right, so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the crabs. And you don't want to overcook it because seafood cooks in quite a short time. So here what I have are 3 crabs that I've cleaned in half. So you want to arrange it in the pot. And you want to cover to steam and cook the crab. So here I'm going to deep fry my montou. Typically when you eat chili crabs, they would serve it with either the small or the big mantous, but I prefer the small one because I can eat as many as I want. So we're going to deep fry this in the yellow Malaysian palm oil. It has a higher smoking point, so it doesn't burn easily. Now you want a gentle deep fry with small bubbles on the outside. You're not frying fried chicken with big bubbles, so you want to make sure that it's a gentle deep fry. So I'm going to let that fry. So the yellow Malaysian palm oil is rich in vitamin E tocotrienols, which is a great antioxidant for you. And the fact that it has a higher smoking point, it's very much favored in the frying industry because the oil doesn't oxidize very easily of all the oils available in the market. So that's why you must use Malaysian palm oil for deep frying, because I use them all the time. So while that is cooking, I'm going to check on my crab here. Let's see. Wow, look at that. My crab has actually turned redder. So my crab is slowly cooking in the sauce just now. I turn it to simmer. So now what we can do is we can turn it around, stir it so that all sauce is coating our crab. It's a little crowded in here, guys, but it's okay, I'll make it work. So, some people like to use cornstarch to thicken it. I like to use just egg to do that. So I'm just gonna stir this around a little bit more, just making sure all of my crabs are covered with the yummy, spicy, sweet, sticky sauce. So as you can see, the golden yellow tinge has already started to appear on your montou. This is when you want to keep a really close eye on it because it can really turn very brown very quickly. So at this point, you just want to stir it around. It is much like frying donuts. This is what I would almost equate it to. You don't want it to be like a rapid deep fry. This is a gentle deep fry. So now the montou is ready. I'm just going to take it out and put it into a strainer. So this will strain all of the oil that you have here. And it's ready to serve. All right. So for garnishing for the crab, I'm going to cut a few stems of cilantro. So this would give it that zesty flavor, that peppery flavor in your chili crab. You can use parsley as well if you want to. I just really love cilantro in everything. And it is a typical kind of herb that we use in Asian cooking. So we will reserve that for our garnishing. Now we're going to plate our crab. So now that I've plated my crabs, what I'm going to do is add a little bit of egg in the chili crab to make this whole dish complete. So what I'm going to do is put this pot back on medium heat, not too high because eggs cook really fast. So I'm going to break one egg into a bowl. Now you can always thicken it up with cornstarch and make a little slurry, but what I like to do is use eggs, as this is typically how we make it. So you want to break the egg slowly. So I want to keep a little bit of the whites in there so that I can see some streaks of white and yellow. So now what we want to do is, while this is on medium heat, you want to slowly stir in the egg while stirring the sauce. Okay, so pour it in, stir it slowly, and it will cook and leave this ribbony white and yellow texture that you can see throughout the sauce. So you want to put a little bit of sauce everywhere in your crab. I don't mind some extra sauces. I'm just going to put more here. So there we have it, chili crab with fried montou for you to try at home. Make sure to use Malaysian palm oil for best results. Hi, welcome to Cook with Passion. So today I'm going to be teaching you my favorite Malaysian street food called crispy apam balik. It's so simple, so easy. I promise you're going to make this all the time. So let's start. So what I have here is 2 cups of all-purpose flour, which you're going to dump in this bowl. And next we're going to put 1.5 tablespoons of rice flour. Put that in. I'm just going to use my spatula to help me out here. Next, You're gonna put 4 tablespoons of corn flour, which I've also added 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So we're gonna dump all that in. Okay. And the next one, we have 3/4 of a cup of sugar. If you want it to be less sweet, you can put less of this, but I wouldn't go less than half a cup because you need the sugar to hold your batter. So I'm just gonna put this all in. And next, I'm gonna put 2 eggs, large ones. And then we're gonna put 1.5 cup of water. So the batter should be loose, something similar to a crepe batter. You wanna make sure you stir it all before you put the mixer in. All right, okay. So what I'm gonna do now is use my mixer. If you have a high-powered blender, you can use that as well. I'm gonna use my mixer here. All right. And we're done. So you want to make sure that there's no flour left in the batter. What you want to do is just take 1 quick stir, and you want to strain this batter just like you would for a crepe batter. All right. So I have here a sieve and a bowl, which I'm going to strain this into. Now this one batch would give you around 20 to 25 apam balik, but it depends on the size of your pan as well. I'm trying to mimic the one that is sold in the night market, so I find the smallest one that I could. But if you make it bigger, it will be a little harder for you to flip it because it's a bigger area that you have to work with. So I would recommend something that is in between 15 to 16 centimeters or smaller. All right, so now that I've gotten everything in there, what we're gonna do is we can rest this batter for 24 hours. You wanna leave it overnight so that all of the batter will stabilize and you're gonna have a smooth and consistent batter the next day. So this is the batter that I've rested for overnight. I'm just gonna give it 1 quick stir to make sure that there's no lumps. You can add a little bit of salt if you want to. I'm just gonna leave it as is because while we're cooking, we're gonna add some butter to it, which will add a little bit of that salty flavor. Here I'm gonna put a few drops of Malaysian palm oil into the pan. So you wanna put just a little bit because the pan is already a non-stick pan. But the reason why I'm using the Malaysian palm oil for this recipe is because of its neutral flavor. So you get the full flavor of what you're cooking and it gives a crispier texture, which is what we're making, crispy apam balik, right? So you want to put this pan over low heat, just like the aunties would in the night market or pasar malam. So I'm going to take a ladle full of the batter, and what I usually do is I take it off the heat when I want to put the batter on, when I want to put the batter in, just to make sure that it doesn't overcook as I swirl it around. Because like I said, you want it to be crispy, so you want it to be as thin as possible. So it takes a few tries to get the hang of this, but once you do, it will be so quick. So what we usually put in here are crushed peanuts, which my dad loves. He always asks it to be extra peanut. And my mom loves this cream corn, so she always wants hers to have extra corn. And you can leave this out if you want to, but traditionally we would put a bit of sugar inside just to give it that bit of crunch. And for that salty and sweet goodness, I'm gonna add a few teaspoons of margarine. So Margarine is actually really good for you because it's trans fat free and it's cholesterol free as well. So what's not to love, right? So I'm gonna turn the heat up a bit now just because we have had the batter inside. So my cue to flip this apam balik crispy is when I start to see the rim of my apam turns brown and the margarine here starts to melt. So that's when you know that you're almost ready to flip it over, okay? So now our apam balik crispy is ready and I've folded them and we're gonna plate them just like so. So there you go, your crispy apam balik is ready. So do try it at home and I'm gonna try one just to prove how crispy it is. Let's take this one and using Malaysian palm oil, you'll get crispy apam balik every time. Try it at home.